Real estate this morning, our focus, Queens and Long Island. What did the fourth quarter report show for these areas? Here to tell us is Associate Broker at Prudential, Douglas Ellerman. Darius Solomon, and good morning to you. Welcome to Today in New York. And I'm curious, this is a first-of-its-kind report, and what does it say?
Well, this is the first time they've really compiled this much data specifically covering, let's say, Queens and Long Island and into one report which we could compare going back a quarter, the prior quarter and last year at this time. So it's a very interesting report in that it's actually showing us how we talk so much about Manhattan, that we don't think quite as much and equally important as Queens, Long Island, and the other boroughs as well.
Well, everything is expensive. I mean, let's just start at that point. But with Queens and Long Island, how does it compare to Manhattan?
Well, if we're looking in the average prices, the Queens, Long Island market as a whole remains somewhat flat over last year. Nationally, we did see some other decreases as well, but the average sales price, if we're looking at Queens in specific, was $492,000. Now, compared to last quarter, it was about from the fourth quarter to the third.
You know, that's down 1.5%, but it's still, that's average sale price. It makes your eyes bug out.
And that's still about 2% higher than the prior year. Now, what's interesting here is to look at the number of sales as well. From 2,400 in the fourth quarter, well, actually from 2,700 in the third to 2,400 in the fourth quarter. So, but most important is to look at the average price itself.
Okay.
Now, again, we're breaking out the different areas, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk as well. So if we look, let's say, at the Nassau prices, we also saw a little bit of a decrease in the prices in Nassau. So right now, the Queens fared the best. Nassau's pricing, we saw an average of about $530,000, which is about 2% lower than the prior quarter as well. And then Suffolk remained somewhat flat across the board.
You know, when you say flat and maybe even a decrease at these asking prices or average prices rather, it still it makes your heart stop. Well, how does someone, you know, afford all of this?
Well, it's important to look at budgets, and this is something we've discussed, you know, many times over, is understanding your budget. Regardless of the prices out there, what's most important is to take into account what your capability on a monthly basis and use that to make those decisions.
Let's talk about inventory. How much is inventory playing a role in these price fluctuations in Long Island, on Long Island as well as in Queens?
Well, in general, similar to Manhattan, we saw from last year into this year about a 30% increase in inventory. And from the third quarter into the fourth quarter, we saw a step back, about 18% decrease again in inventory itself. Now, the increased inventory has given people more choices. That's what helped actually stabilize the prices and give more options.
Let's talk about, I believe we have a graphic for Nassau County.
Nassau County prices. Now, if we're looking at the averages here, as we mentioned before, at about 586. Now, that showed a slight shift, downward trend from 5% from the prior quarter from 618,000. Again, we see a larger shift in number of sales to 2,700 from 33. So that would have affected some of the pricing as well.
And if you're thinking of selling, is this the time to sell, or is this still a time to maybe hold when you see that negative?
Well, we're somewhere in the middle. We did shift into a buyer's market in general for the entire area about in the beginning of the year, but right now we're sort of right on the fence. It's both the buyers and sellers market.
Before we wrap up, just want to show the Suffolk County numbers as well, and let's go through
Suffolk County again. Now here we saw yet another decrease, 438,000 from 450. Now this is why Queens remains somewhat the most stable of the lot, because a lot of people in Manhattan that might have been outpriced by the market in the city are looking into Queens as well, because it's right nearby. But you know, overall, it's important to take a look at the whole trends as they happen. And you know, as we're moving now, inventory is reduced somewhat, and people are back out in the market. So take a look at the prices closely and compare to others. You'll have choices.
You know, looking at those prices, a commute from Rhode Island is looking more like my speed right now. But Darius, thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
For more information about Queens and Long Island real estate, log on to WNBC.com.